Okay, Ancient Mahara here. Codependent blaming of the borderline is denial. It keeps you trapped and stuck in all the woundedness and pain that you are in. And no, that's not your fault, what they did to you. But borderline blaming the borderline, is denial. Why? Because what do people with BPD do to you? They blame you, right? For things, okay, difference here, but they blame you for things that you didn't do, or things that you didn't intend to have a certain meaning, or whatever they run with, get triggered by, and turn things into. So people with BPD blamed you as part of the way that they abused you. And so if you think about it, people with codependency, now there's a difference between blaming and holding someone accountable. Definitely. Only, as probably, if you're new to this, you can't hold a borderline responsible or accountable if they're untreated and not in therapy, etc. And most of you know that, or many of you know that already, right? So, but that doesn't take away a need to do that, a want, a desire to hold them accountable, a desire to be heard. But what do people with codependency, many people do, instead is vilify and blame the borderline for everything. Well, for their abuse, for the way they mistreated you, absolutely. They are responsible. So blame, you see, blame is not really healthy because they're responsible for what they did. And now you have to work that through, and that, that's not okay. I mean, there's nothing equitable about that. There's nothing okay about that. Nothing excusable about that. But people with codependency are often, without really realizing it, you're increasing your own suffering, and you're holding up your own recovery because you're so focused on, as you're trying to process this in the beginning, people leave comments on the channel here, to different videos, people leave comments all over the internet. Hey, Pop, she was doing good. I did a live stream earlier. But the point is, so the borderline blames you in an abusive way. And I'm not saying for a codependent to blame a borderline back for the world. The hurt you're in right now is abuse. No. But how did the borderline blaming you instead of looking at their issues, how did that work, right? And it's not going to help the person with BPD because they go on to the next, many of them, they go on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, never realizing that they need to look at themselves for what's really going on, always thinking everything is everybody else's fault. So they blame you, but they blame you in an abusive, manipulative, often very traumatizing way that is part of the rumination, part of the cognitive dissonance, part of what's really difficult for people who just got out of a relationship with somebody with BPD, or broke up, or were discarded, or were ghosted, traumatized by it. So the thing is, it won't help you to keep blaming the borderline, even though they have responsibility, right? For how they treated you, for the way the relationship ended. I've had so many clients say, if only he or she would have just sat down and said, you know what, I can't do this. It doesn't work. I'm sorry for hurting you. I'm sorry for this. Like the way that more healthy relationships can end sometimes in a mutual way, where both partners might go, yeah, it isn't really working for me anymore, and feel like we've grown apart, and the other person says, yeah, I can kind of see that, and it's painful, but there's closure. So I think sometimes people with codependency, because you're not through it yet, because you're still hurting, because you're still trying to figure it out, because the cognitive dissonance, the rumination, all the things that you need to get into healing and recovery to work through, and I'm out here to work with you if I resonate with you, blaming the borderline, and more to the point, even vilifying borderlines in general, is only going to keep you stuck in a mind-trapped narrative of your own that results from how you've been traumatized, or for many with codependency, re-traumatized in a relationship with somebody with BPD, because you have trauma unresolved from your childhood, not to the same extent as people with BPD with the primal trauma that they don't have resolved. And of course, BPD manifests really, there's an overlap, but it manifests very differently than codependency. So I'm really just here to remind people with codependency, or if you're new to the channel or my videos or this whole area of figuring out you've been with somebody with BPD, whatever brings you to this, or, you know, if you're not new, but if you're new, it's really important not to actively get so caught up. People do, though, for a time, but to work your way out of, like, blaming and vilifying them. Be angry, yes, and feel what you feel, absolutely, and express that if you have to in the beginning. But people that keep doing that only end up blocking their own recovery. It doesn't hurt the person with BPD because they're not taking responsibility. They probably moved on, and they move on so quickly because they don't attach you in the first place. I'll have more coming on that. So I just wanted to say here quickly that for people with codependency, remember, okay, it's not like you want to, you're not being abusive if you blame the borderline, because they are responsible. But try to put it in that lens of what they are responsible and accountable for, that you need to work on healing right now. Because when people with BPD blamed you, it was abusive, it hurt you, it's led to a lot more pain and suffering for you, for sure. But if you blame them back, I'm not saying that's abusive, but in the absence of being able to hold them accountable or responsible, it will really put you in the best stead going forward in your healing recovery journey. To try to stop that focus, stop blaming them. They're responsible for what they're responsible for. You need to work that out in therapy now. But blaming them blocks the focus you need to have on yourself to get into healing and recovery. So, and when you were blamed by that borderline, like I said, borderline blame, it's abusive, it's gaslighting, it's manipulative, it's punishment, it's revenge, it's a whole lot of things in one, especially if it's done after you've been ghosted, discarded, or as a relationship, as they just prior to doing that, or even if you broke up with them. So just remember, from the codependent perspective, you want to think about how what they're responsible for and what they need to be held accountable for, but not in the sense of blaming them back, because that's only going to hold up your healing recovery journey. It's only going to keep you stuck in more of the pain that they inflicted upon you by blaming you for so much that you didn't have anything to do with in the first place. So take care.